All right, man, it's a Monday morning, and I am sitting here about to have a conversation with a very, very popular man. And I'm excited because you know what? This guy goes by the name of Cathcart, and he is widely known, hitting done right, HDR. Josh, I'm thrilled to have you on this Monday morning, man. How are you doing today?
Dude, I am doing fantastic. Like we spoke on before we went live, my Monday sped up a little bit as of last night with some out of town clients coming in that wanted lessons that I wasn't expecting. But all in all, it's a Monday. My Mondays are actually one of my best days in the cage with groups and just the players that I have in. So I can't complain.
Man, it is good to have you on, and man, you are a sought after guy. I'm curious. I There's so many questions I want to ask you in such little time, and we'll have another conversation, after this one. But
Mhm.
hitting done right, I want to know what inspired you to get rolling with this because it's an out of control freight train at this point.
So it's kind of a long story short. I had another hitting business that started in 2018. Me and a business partner started that people probably either have forgotten about or never knew about at this point. Um, and I can't really talk about it just for business reasons. But I had another business that did very well. And when me and my partner went our separate ways, I started hitting done right. And really, I was just sitting at my house. I was like, damn, what I'm about to do, like that was a couple years of work.
Mm.
And now I have to start all over. And I just thought about kind of my methods and what I thought about it. And for me, I think that one of the things that draws people to me, especially for the young ones, is I don't teach one swing.
Mm.
I teach what, or I evaluate and teach what I think is going to help those hitters. I think there's a couple things that are absolutes as far as body positions and things in hitting, but having your own stance, having your own style, having your own rhythm, how you get to those positions, I think is very individual. So I was just sitting around and it just kind of came to me. I was like, hitting done right. Like, we're going
Yeah.
to try to make this right for everybody. And I started, posting and doing this kind of just like I did with the other one. And you're right, it picked up really quickly. Um, my YouTube channel was the one that was like, that one was tough, like to get back because the other business had like, I don't know, like 200 videos on it.
Mm.
I did 120 drill videos in 3 weeks
Wow.
to get the Hitting Done Right YouTube back up and running again. And that was about 2.5 years ago at this point. So in 2.5 years, up over 300,000 followers across platforms, dude. It's been nuts.
That is crazy. I mean, Josh, we're talking with Josh Cathcart here on the Baseball Forward podcast. Man, I've been watching you from afar, and I'm like, I gotta reach out because one, you're just a baseball guy, and baseball guys, true baseball
Yeah,
guys, love talking the game of baseball. So,
no
like,
doubt.
dude, I'm curious. I'm curious about you as a human. So,
Mhm.
like, growing up, I want to kind of know, like, where'd you grow up? What made you fall in love with the game of baseball?
Well, I grew up in Lake Jackson, Texas, which is about an hour south of Houston. And the high school that I went to, Brazos Wood,
Mm,
is a baseball high school. I mean, it was a huge high school. It was a 5A, big high school, but it was a baseball high school. Like growing up in this town, every kid's dream was to play baseball for Brazos Wood. You want to wear that Buccaneer jersey. But I come from baseball people. My dad was a college All American.
mm,
My mom played big time softball before big time softball was big time.
wow.
Um, and so I grew up with it in my blood. My dad ended up getting drafted by the Reds. And it's my biological dad. So it's a different name for those people who are going to go fact check. His name was Bill Cheatham. Um, so yeah, I just grew up with it and it's what I did. My mom reminds me all the time that before I could really walk, I had a ball and glove in my
Heck yeah.
hand. So and then after that, man, we had season tickets to the Astros, like when they were in the Astrodome. So I
Oh,
grew
yeah.
up, watching Nolan Ryan and Mike
Mm,
Scott and Glenn Davis and Bill Doran and Dickie Thon and those type guys. Once I got older, I was doing a podcast actually on Saturday with some kids that are running one. And I told them as I got older, the game got really hard. Like I was the epitome of little league super stud. And then when the field grew and I didn't grow, the game got really, really hard for me, especially from an offensive standpoint. Defensively, I was pretty good all the way through, but offensively, I really struggled. And so I had to do everything correctly. I wasn't big enough to out muscle it. I couldn't catch one on the handle and muscle it over the infield. I couldn't end cap one down the line. And so I really dove in to the fundamentals of hitting and watched smaller guys and how they went about things. And it just became a passion. I was recruited to some small schools out of high school, but my ego got in the way. We didn't have all of this ranking systems and perfect game and, these trainers that could tell me, hey, dude, you're good, but you ain't that good.
Sure.
And I wish somebody would have, because I ended up going to Texas A&M as a preferred walk-on, made it through some of the walk-on tryouts and everything, and then ended up getting hurt early on. Kind of hid it from people, but ended up getting hurt early on, and baseball is over for me, really before it started. But then it kind of switched to coaching. My mom had always told me, you're going to be a baseball coach. And at 15, 16 years old, you don't want to hear that from mom. I was like, no, I'm not. I'm going to be, a physical therapist or whatever. Well, lo and behold, here we are 23 years later, and mom was right. So I started volunteering during the summers. When I was in college, when I would come home, I would volunteer. My cousin was playing at that time. He was 13. And so I would come and help with it was called Babe Ruth at that time. So I would come and help with his Babe Ruth team. And then it kind of switched to helping with the Little League camps. And then after I graduated, I was here working at Academy Sports and Outdoors. If anybody's from the South, they know what Academy is. But it's basically, a big Dick's Sporting Goods, but, in the early 2000s.
Yep.
So I was working there, and my high school coach, he was the assistant when I was on varsity. He called and he was like, "Hey man, I heard you were in town." And I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "You want a job?" And I was like, "Please get me out of here." And I was like, what do I have to do? And he was like, "Well, I have a freshman spot open.
Heck yeah.
It'll be your team. There's no assistant, fair warning, whatever." And so in 2005, I started coaching freshman high school baseball. Was with the freshmen for 2 years, then got promoted to JV. Did JV for I think 5, and then 2 years as the varsity hitting and infield instructor, and actually won a state championship in 2011 at my alma mater. So it was pretty legit, man. Had a baby in 2012, found out very quickly that high school coaching and teaching wasn't going to allow me to provide the way I wanted to provide. So I started working at Hardball Academy in 2012. And then 2018 started the first online business. 2022 started Hitting Done Right. Here we are, man.
Man, Josh, dude, that is the ultimate grinder story. And it gives me goosebumps. It fires me up because you know what it tells me, dude? You love the game the way the game wants to be loved. And like me sitting here where I'm at from my story, and we all have a story, but if you love the game the right way and you give to the game the right way and you respect the game the right way, I truly believe the game will give back to you. It sounds to me like you played your role, you loved it the way you were supposed to, and now the game is just giving you back in numbers that you can't even imagine. Is that correct?
I wouldn't phrase it that way, but you're a lot better spoken than I am. But yeah, I mean, if I sit back and reflect on it, It has been, and I left out one of the things that I have that I don't want to say most because I don't know everybody's story. I was also a travel team coordinator for 8 years.
Oh, wow.
So I've done high school freshman, I've done little league, I've done this, and I've done travel ball, and now I'm doing the online personal stuff, traveling the country doing camps.
Yeah.
So I've kind of been all of it. But man, the way that I'm received by people that really are interested in the game from a perspective of I wasn't overly gifted, and are really looking for the good instruction, people can relate to that.
Yeah.
Parents that never played the game. That's one of the biggest things is that I hear all the time is you make this easy to understand,
Mm.
where others it's super complicated or their teaching methods don't resonate with people, and that's been a blessing, man. I think that being a true teacher is extremely important. And I have to thank, God and, the people around me that were praying for me when I was a young coach getting started, that
Wow.
put me in the right position to learn how to do those things. My teaching job when I was a high school baseball coach was an elementary PE teacher.
Wow.
I had, a gym full of 40 kindergarten through fourth graders all day.
Yeah.
And teaching them to jump rope and throw a football and play kickball and play wiffle ball and do all that, it gave me the tools I needed to relate to
Wow.
all different types of young people when they come into the cage or on a team or wherever it is. So it's been great. And at this point, it's given me the opportunity to provide for my daughter the way that I always wanted to.
Man, that is amazing. Talking to Josh Cathcart, hitting done right here on the Baseball Forward podcast today. Josh, I was telling my wife the other day, we were talking about coaching. Coincidentally, I'm sure I shoved that down her throat more than she wants to, but
I'm sure.
we were talking about like what makes a good coach, and the question was kind of what makes a good coach, and I kind of thought about it, and I'm like, it's not about what I know. Like, did I like? There are tons of us that had, baseball careers and played the game at a higher level, and and we think we know everything, but it's not about what you know. It's about what you know that you can articulate and express to someone so that they can understand it and so that they can um, execute on kind of what your sentiments are. So I'd be curious, man, to get your take because sitting where you're at right now, guys, I know you probably already know who he is as you're listening to this podcast, but Hitting Done Right, check him out. That's all you got to go do. Hundreds of thousands of followers everywhere. So videos everywhere. I'm curious what your take on kind of defining what a good coach does or what a good coach is capable of doing.
I think the number one thing is communication. You have to be able to communicate, but you have to be able to communicate with all sorts of personality types. You have to be able to communicate with what's going on in that player's life that day, what's going on in
Mm,
that player's life as a whole. What's their home life like? What's their practice habits like? What are they getting from other coaches? That's one of the biggest things now is everybody's playing on three different travel teams and everybody has
mm,
different trainers and everything else. So what are you hearing there? How can we try to put this all together? Um, in my younger days, I would rough isn't probably the right word. Probably too tough on kids. My expectations were probably too much. My high school head coach was a very, very demanding, um, didn't care about your feelings type
mm.
guy. But that's more of just the times that it was. I graduated high school in '98, so we're talking '95 to '98, and I had this dude that would just, I mean, he'd rip you up one side and down the other. If we talk to kids that way now, we wouldn't have a job within 10 minutes.
Yeah,
Somebody would have it on a phone. It would be sent to the administration. They'd come out there and they fire you on the spot.
facts.
So it's a little bit different world. So that was a kind of a learning curve for me. Was being able to soften up when I needed to soften up, being able to communicate the way that I needed to communicate. One of the biggest things for young coaches, especially older coaches, holds true for you too, but they probably already know, is you have to build trust.
Mm,
You have to, if something needs to stay in-house between you and the player, it stays in-house between you and the player. If it's something that does need to be put out to the parents or to another coach, that player has to trust that when I say, hey, I'm going to let your parents know about this and I'm going to contact your other coach,
oh wow.
but that's as far as it's going to go. And building that trust allows them to take in the information that you're giving them more freely. If
Sure.
there's any question about trust, they're not going to be receptive. So communication is number one. Um, Understanding when you need to be super supportive and when you need to be a little more demanding on them. I tell my players that come into the cage, I was like, some days we're going to have feel good days. If you need a feel good day, you've been practicing this week. Yeah, you had a really rough weekend. You need a feel good day where I'm just sitting here flipping balls to you and you just want to find the barrel. You need to let me know.
Oh wow.
But there's also going to be days that we come in here and we're really working and we're grinding. It's going to be difficult. And you have to have that mental fortitude to understand this is work. Yes, it's baseball. Yes, we want the games to be fun. But if mom and dad are paying a mortgage for you to have a trainer and for you to go around and do everything, there has to be some kind of return on that investment. And that means work. And some players aren't cut out for that at an early age. I have a lot of times where I'll tell parents, I'm sorry, I'm not in the business of stealing your money, and your kid just isn't ready for this type of training.
Mm,
You can go spend $50 an hour for somebody to flip them baseballs and give them the basics, but spending the type of money that my academy charges for your player, those two things aren't meshing right now. um, and so just being straight up with people across the board, um, is
communicating.
probably the biggest thing. And then you have to have valid passion. Fake passion is seen
Wow.
through really quickly. Like when I get excited about something in a cage, my players know that I am genuinely excited for their breakthrough or whatever the case is. I'm not just this guy being a fake cheerleader for them. Kids see through BS, man. They got better BS readers than adults do,
Wow.
and they'll pick out the fakeness real quick.
Dan, Josh, we're talking with Josh Cathcart here, hitting done right. I love hearing that because I know it to be true. Hey, man, I didn't realize class 98. Same here, man.
Yeah, man.
Shout out 98.
Amen.
So that's exciting. But man, that's a statement that really resonates with me. The valid passion versus the fake passion. And when you say that, I can tell just through the videos that I watch and the way you speak and the interactions that I see you have, that there is passion for what you're doing in that moment. So I want to know, like, what's the most rewarding thing for you as like a coach? It's that light bulb moment, that aha moment. What's the most rewarding thing for you as a coach?
I think it's different based on the talent level, and I think that that's something that parents and coaches need to keep in mind is to
Ooh,
keep the expectations correct. For some kids, the best thing in the world may be for them to get three barrels in a row in a cage, where for somebody else, it may be making their varsity high school team as a sophomore.
good
Like,
point.
so understanding the expectation, understanding where they are, but as a general, broad, what really fires me up is when you can either see it, or when I can see it as a coach, or when the player can finally kind of sit back and go, damn, all this hard work really is paying off.
Heck yeah.
And sometimes I see that before they see it, because I see it in a lot smaller achievements. They see it as the first home run or
Sure.
making the varsity or whatever it is, when I can see it in an at bat. Like I can look at an at bat and go, you wouldn't have done that 3 weeks ago, or that wasn't possible for you 6 months ago. And so seeing kids start to level up and the work that they put in really start to, play. We talk about it all the time.
Yeah.
Does the work you're putting in, is it playing yet, or is it still only work in the cage? And so seeing those kids have success. Now, for my older kids, 100% without a doubt, it's, hey, coach, I'm committing today.
Heck yeah.
And that right there, when I've got kids that I've been working with since they were 9 years old, 10 years old, 12, and I get that phone call and be like, I'm committing today, and will you be at my signing? That right there is like,
heck yeah,
yeah.
dude, that fires me up.
Yeah, that gives me chills talking about it. I had 2 softball girls right now, like in the past 2 weeks, that have gone on their official visits. And when they come back in the cage and they've gone to their first college football game and they've walked in and they've seen those facilities and their face is like, this is what I work for. That's it.
It's so weird. I try to talk to you with the coaches that I talk with, and anytime I have the coaches as guests on the podcast, I try to explain, or I try to get their take on what's the difference from playing and coaching. And so often I hear coaching is so much more rewarding than playing, which is crazy to say. That's what I thought when I was playing, but that's what I'm like. I can just tell you're lighting up.
Oh, dude,
talking as a coach, dude. That's legit.
Well, it's one of those things. Like I said, people don't understand. Like when you've had players that you've known literally since, I have kids at this point. I've had kids that I started with when they were 9, and they're 22 years old right now. And
wow.
and you read about them, and like one of my kids, he got recruited to A&M. He was a first team all-state guy. He was a dual way. He was a lefty pitcher, first baseman, all this. Well, he learned when he got to campus that he wasn't going to be playing that year. So he transferred to a JUCO. Lo and behold, his team wins the JUCO World Series. Dude hits like 480 and hits 18 bombs.
Oh my gosh.
And so it's like, and just watching those kids, I remember him as a 9-year-old who couldn't swing and stand up. Like,
oh, that's crazy. I love it. Okay, so I want to transition to kind of your perspective. Man, you've watched so much happen with the game of baseball in the last, let's say, 20 years. Okay, that's a lot of time, and you've watched this game. You've watched the game evolve into what it is now, what it was, what it is now. And I still, in my opinion, I still love the game. But knowing everything sitting at this point, what you, Josh Cathcart, right now, what would you have told yourself, the playing version of yourself, in the mid-90s when you're coming up? What would you have told? What advice would you have had?
Without question, I would have needed to hit the weight room.
Ooh.
That number one thing for me, like we were talking earlier, when I was in Little League, I was great. I was a home run hitter. I was a fireballer. But I didn't really grow again until almost my senior year in high school.
Oh, wow.
Like when I was a sophomore, I was 5'5", 140 pounds. I mean, I was little. Like I'm 5'8", 170 now. 5'7", 5'8", 170, 165, depending on what day of the week it is. But the weight room and becoming a better athlete. I was one of those kids. I was a soccer player. I was a baseball player. I played basketball, played football. And my athleticism always was good for my small community.
Sure.
But big picture, I would have been nothing. And we just didn't have that kind of stuff. And that's the thing is, for young players, continue to get bigger, faster, stronger. Worry about your athleticism before you worry about fine-tuning anything, especially as a younger player. Of course, you want to have the basics. You don't want to have bad mechanics. It could hurt you. But it's so much more important to be a better athlete. And that's one thing that I wish I could go back on. I didn't get serious about the weight room until my junior year in high school. And that was after basically being embarrassed my sophomore year. Getting out there with the varsity level guys during practice and whatnot, and just realizing right then I don't have a chance with these guys on the field.
Wow.
So hopefully that can save some people some embarrassment and agony. Go get bigger, stronger, faster right now.
Dude, hey, I'll second that, because I can say this. I think when I graduated high school, I think I might have been maybe 155, 160, and it's the same thing. And then you get into college and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm playing with men.
Oh man, that was
That's great advice. That's great advice. I'm curious because I know whoever's listening to this today, they don't they want to know what you know about hitting. Now they want to dig in, and there's got to be some sort of magic potion that you have. So I'm gonna leave it general right now, and I'm gonna say,
okay.
Josh, what makes a good hitter, man?
Number one, before we even think about fundamentals, physical, it's competitive mindset
Mm,
and a very short memory. But when I say short memory, I have to break that down because you want to be able to have a very long memory with things that work or talking to older kids. If you see pictures over and over again, you have to be able to bank information. How did
sure.
he get me out? What did I do that was successful? That type of thing. But overall, you have to have a very short memory because it's so negative. So, competitiveness, number one, stepping in the box, being competitive, and then having a short memory for failure, number two. From a physical standpoint, and when I say physical, I just mean the fundamentals, I don't mean actual physical size. The fundamentals, getting a proper load, proper launch, and then proper connection. I tell my players that come in the cages, I tell my players at camps that if you can have those three phases or those three things done consistently, you have a chance. You have to load properly and on time. Your launch position must be balanced, which in turn gives you adjustability. And then you must connect properly. And connect is not contact with the ball. Connection is connecting your body, both backside and front side, into contact. And that is generally where players break down, is somewhere in those three, there's a problem. A lot of times, young players don't load properly. They're either not strong enough or they haven't been taught.
Mm,
Um, Launch position, if you haven't loaded properly, launch position is hard to achieve because you don't have control over your forward move. If you don't have control over that, then you're trying to make up for those deficiencies with your arms and hands early. And so now we get disconnected. People may call it casting, dropping the
mm.
hands, whatever the case is. So my magic formula, I guess, is get those three things done. The swing is basically over after, and I'm going to stand up and show you.
Yep.
Like
Show us.
once you get connected on the backside, like we're here in launch, and then get connected. All it is from here now is just trusting what your eyes have told you and
Mm.
allowing your hands to work to contact. The swing itself, the big moves are over once you get turned into connection. After that, it's all trusting what your eyes tell you.
I love that. I love that because, man, this is what I know of you, keeping it simple, making it understandable. So I want to go a little bit deeper with that, and I want to
Okay.
say because I'm going to be selfish. I want my sons to hear this stuff,
All right.
and I'm doing it for free right now.
There you go.
So the launch. What is key to a good launch, Josh?
So you have to have the tension in the body in the right places. Number one, you want to feel a little bit, like for me as a righty, you want to feel some stretch like underneath across your left lat,
Wow.
working into your core. You want to have a little bit of tension back in the back. You'll hear people talk about scap load.
Yep.
I'm not a real big fan of a hard pullback because that can get a little tight and people want to push. But there does have to be a work across and get into the big muscles. And then in your rear hip, you have to be able to
Rear hip.
hold that tension. As far as when the front foot hits the ground, I have a checklist. Like when I do my analysis and when I'm evaluating people in the cage, hands over the back foot, hands even with the shoulders.
Okay.
So straight across over the back foot, front shoulder slightly down and in. And then this one is huge. If y'all have players that aren't getting stretched enough, look at their front elbow in relation to their hips. The front elbow should be over the back hip.
Okay.
If it's not, if it's in the middle of your body, or even worse, if it's at the front, you obviously don't have the correct amount of stretch.
Stretch.
One of my most popular YouTube videos is actually, it's called Load to Launch the Reboot.
Load to
And
launch the reboot.
yep.
Okay.
And it goes into more depth about, the body positions there, where you want to feel the tension, those types of things. Without question, launch position is the biggest flaw that I see when people send in videos or anything else. A lot of that can be attributed to an improper load, but you could get to launch without loading properly. A lot of times it's the stretch aspect.
Okay.
Players want, they don't want, they don't know any better. They allow their hands to come forward as the front foot's coming down. So instead of having this motion, we've got this motion. And think about space as time. And if you create space between your front foot and the knob, then you're creating more time. Now, the ball's going to get to you in the same amount of time, but you as the hitter, when you've created that space, that gives you time to make adjustments.
Wow.
If your hands come down with your front foot and everything shrinks, now my adjustability is gone, and that's when you see kids that are just throwing their hands at it.
Wow. I love it. Talking with Josh Cathcart, hitting done right today, man. I could take you into that. I would love to. And, instead what I'll do is I'll just go through all the YouTube videos like I already have. I swear I'm not stalking, man.
Please do. And share those things.
Yes.
It's one of those things, man, like that YouTube. I'm not a big production guy. Like that, my content is literally shot on my phone when I'm there in the moment. I don't have an editing team. I don't do all this. Now, my brother, he's kind of my business partner at this point. And when we come down and we'll shoot like 4 or 5 videos, he puts them together, but they're not these Adobe, or I don't know what all the programs are that everybody uses. Like they're just, CapCut and everything. Yep. It's raw footage. And so getting that YouTube channel out there to more people who are genuinely just interested in the fundamentals of a baseball swing. I mean, and not trying to be too cocky about it, but I've looked at all the others, and there's only about 2 or 3 other dudes on YouTube that if I had a kid, I would be like, oh yeah, go watch that.
Hey, I'm going to be honest. I'll be honest. As I'm firing up this podcast and in Baseball Forward, our venture with my partner and I is growing and growing. That's one of the first things I say is selfishly, who do we want to be associated with? Who do we want around? Boom. Mm-hmm. That's why I'm thankful that you and I are having this conversation, because everything you're saying is the truth. I mean, it's very simple stuff, but guys, you have to go check this stuff out, Hitting Done Right, because it's everything. It's like if you have a thought, like I was just earlier talking about, hey, tell me the secrets of a launch. It's all there and it's broken down. Everything is there. So I encourage everybody, guys, you got to go follow this guy. It is, if you want to just be a hitting geek, go watch his videos, go pay attention to his content, because you can learn a lot being a dodo bird like myself of what is really hitting all about. So Josh, well done with the content, my friend. Talking with Josh Cathcart here, Hitting Done Right on the Baseball Forward podcast. Josh, we got about 10, 15 more minutes, if even. I want to get to the next question, and I want to know, what's one thing about hitting that you think most players don't understand?
Oh, that's a tough question, my man. I'm going to steal something from Jamie Savalos on this. Actually, if you don't know who Jamie is, I would recommend going and kind of getting into his stuff. He's his own person. He's a great guy, but he's got some different thoughts from the traditional. But the thought is, hitting is messy.
Hitting is messy.
It's one of those things I get, when people send in video, what's wrong with this, swing, blah, blah, blah. Well, you swung at a pitch in the dirt. you're off time. Like, it's not going to look pretty if you swing at bad pitches or you're off time. And the best hitters, there was actually 108 Performance had one of their instructors that did a talk on this the other day that I saw. And I stopped and I listened because I knew what he was going to say before he said it. It's everybody can hit when they're perfectly on time. Are you able to hit when you're not on time?
Ooh.
And that is what separates people. And so everybody's like searching for this perfect mechanical swing. And yes, you have to have good fundamentals, but if you can't make adjustments and you can't work, it's they talk about off script, like for an NFL quarterback, if you can't work off script, you're not going to be able to hit at a high level.
Love that.
And so that's probably the biggest thing that young hitters and young parents need to really start to listen to and start to understand. It's great if your son hits a bomb, of course, or your daughter. It's great if they go 4 for 4 against a crappy pitcher. Yeah, pad your stats. But what's going to impress people is the quality of at-bats and how you are able to compete and execute when things aren't perfect or when you're facing that super stud on the mound and it's not somebody that's just throwing pus up there.
Yep.
And so that's for me, that's probably the biggest thing is hitting's messy, build a good foundation, but learn that you got to be able to adjust and hit when things aren't perfect.
Man, that's so, I love that. And so I want to know, how do I practice if I'm a kid out there and you say off script? Because man, that is it is so on point. It's like you could have the most perfect swing. Oh, I'm on the on deck circle and I'm taking the perfect swing, right? And then when you get into the game, it's like, that's not the swing I was taking. So how do I practice being off script with my swing?
This is something that's very difficult to achieve this day and age. It's gotten harder, I think, and I am always up for anybody that has ideas. But the way to get better at hitting is to hit.
Yes.
And not enough kids get live ABs. You hear them all the time. When I go to my team practice, all we do is defense. Well, that's that, or we have our cage days and we go and we hit on the tee and we do front toss and whatever. If you want to learn and you want to test your swing, you must hit against live pitching. And I don't mean a coach standing up there throwing BP. I mean live. When I was growing up and you were growing up and probably the parents that are listening to this were growing up, you went and you played wiffle ball with your buddies. You went and played home run derby with your buddies. You went and you played pickup games with your buddies. And you were up there and you learned what was a strike. You learned what you could hit hard. You learned what you shouldn't swing at and all of those things. You know, you get out there and your buddy says, hey, dude, I'm about to cut you up with this curveball right now. All right, bring it. And one of two things. You either learn to lay off that curveball that bounces in the dirt, or you learn to hit that curveball that bounces in the dirt and you hit it off a bounce. I don't care what you do, but you learn to make adjustments. And kids they don't test their swing enough. They don't play enough. There's always a coach or a parent telling them they're doing something wrong or, try this and do this. Just go out there and play. And if you do, for the older kids, if you have access to a pitching machine or whatever else it is, crank the ball or crank the velocity up, make the breaking balls, harder, sharper than what you see in a game, make your practice more difficult. That goes back to what we talked about early on. I understand that you got to have some feel good days. There are days that you just need to go in there and feel good, but 75, 80% of your practice time should be testing your swing and making it harder than it is in the game.
Excellent stuff. Excellent stuff. Make your practice more difficult and test yourself. Test that swing. I know, Josh, one thing that my boys do a ton, and it seems to be helping, is they do a lot of the self-toss stuff where they'll flip and they'll hit like fungos themselves, and like they'll start trying to, hey, can I hit the catcher pop-up? Can I hit the 10 times in a row off of so anyway, self-toss.
Let's stay on that for a second.
All right.
That's one of the best things that hitters can do for eye-hand coordination and rhythm. Being able to toss a ball up to yourself that comes down in an area that you can hit it, stabilize your body, get your hands in the right spot on the bat, and hit it. It's fantastic. I have an 11U group that I do once a week. And one of my favorite, and now one of their favorite things, and y'all people might have seen it, you might have seen it, is the toss up, let it land on a small trampoline.
Oh, sweet.
And catch it off the bounce.
Heck yeah.
The bounces, if you catch it on a wrong part, it may be a short bounce, it may be a high bounce, it may if there's any side spin, it may take off. And so toss it up, let it hit that trampoline, get balanced, and then try to hit line drives up the middle. It's a good one.
That's off script. Hey, we didn't go the way I was supposed to. I was thinking. That's right. Yeah. Oh, I love it, dude. Josh Cathcart, we're talking here. A couple more questions. Best baseball advice you've ever received?
I have a funny one. The funniest one I've ever heard. My high school coach that I was talking about earlier. Swing hard in case you hit it. Yeah. That one was always good. Man, I don't know. I've had so much baseball advice. The best baseball advice. Let's see. Don't let one at-bat define you. The short memory, especially I was a middle infielder. So the short memory on the middle infield. Man, that's tough just to narrow it down to one.
All right, let's here, I'm going to help you. You're facing, all right, I'm a high school junior today going up against the all-league dude that's 90 plus. What advice would you give me?
Oh, dude, you got to, like, mentally, you have to think that you're a super stud. And when you are facing those guys, don't get behind. Jump on the fastball.
Ooh, I like that. I like that. Don't get behind those big boys. Because, I mean, that's what they want to do. Like DeGrom, they want to eat you alive the more pitches they see, right?
Well, then that's approach, and that's a really good topic too. And I can touch on that quickly. When y'all are facing, and this goes for girls and guys, when y'all are facing power arms, the guys and girls that are going for strikeouts with fastballs, do not get behind. Jump on fastballs early. Now, if you're facing lefties with finesse or girls who are spinning it more, they want you to make soft contact. Those are the ones you need to be more picky about. Dudes and girls that are coming out there pumping.
We got you. Keep going.
Yeah.
The lefty with the finesse. Keep going.
Well, yeah, the lefty with finesse or the girls that, rely on spin more than they do velo. Those are the ones that want you to swing early, soft contact. Yep. The power pitchers, you can't afford to sit there and take 2 pitches early. Because now you're set up for the slider or the drop ball or the rise ball or whatever the case may be. So power pitchers, jump on them early. Finesse pitchers, be a little more picky.
See, that's the stuff that I wanted to get. That's the stuff that's going to be gold right there. I love that. I love that. All right, I got another journal question before I let you go here, Josh. The young players with baseball forward, our goal is to elevate the next generation of baseball players and coaches. Okay. So give us some general advice for the young players coming up in the game. What would you do to elevate the next generation?
Make sure that it stays fun. Set realistic goals. Watch the game. Yes. That is, man, there's not enough kids that come in and I'll be like, who's your favorite team? Who's your favorite player? And they have to think about it. And it's like, there may be a very small percentage of players that cannot really be a fan and be very good. But for the most part, you need to be a student of the game, be a fan of the game, learn how to play the game. Not enough kids know how to play the game. Everybody's going and searching for velocity. Everybody's going and searching for exit velocity, trying to hit home runs. And they don't know the small things that make a ball player. So become a fan.
Man, that is great advice. Josh. And I'll take it a step further because, man, I couldn't agree more. Watch a game. Don't just watch highlights of the game. Watch the game. Watch how the game is played. Josh Cathcart, the hitting done right. I mean, man, I am so thankful for your time today. really good conversation. I mean, I've got some notes. Trust me, I've got some notes that
Good, man.
I'm gonna cheat on. So, hey, man, I just want to tell you thank you very much for joining the Baseball Forward podcast. I want to give you an opportunity real quick before we say goodbye to plug all your channels, plug all your social media, and where can we find all your stuff at, man?
Everything. Well, first and foremost, man, I really, really appreciate the opportunity. I've been watching, kind of like I said, the stuff that you put out and the guests that you've had on, and to even be thought about with those guys is an honor, just from a baseball perspective. So thank you for that. It's not very difficult. Everything is hitting done right. It's spelled the same all the way across. TikTok, Facebook, Instagram. My YouTube channel is also hitting done right. I would love to have people get on there and really dive into what content I put out there. Y'all see my drills. Y'all see the fun stuff. You kind of see my passion for the game as a whole on, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook with the highlights. YouTube is a reference. It's a hitting library. That's the way. That's the way that I have it envisioned. That's the way it's designed. There's simple drills. There's in-depth lesson look-ins, so people can see how I interact with players, how I handle different swing flaws, and try to teach the corrections to that. So push to my YouTube. I'd appreciate it, but across all platforms, hitting done right. I'm not one of these guys that's hard to get a hold of. I'm not one of these guys that's not going to respond. If you send me a legit hitting question, if you want me to give you, very quick look and suggestion for your hitters, feel free to reach out through, direct messages. I do offer full analysis, 10 to 15 minute full breakdowns of your son or daughter's swing on my website, which is also hitting done right. And based off of those analysis, I do customized practice plans. The drills that are in the customized practice plans are directly from my YouTube. So you'll have me doing the instruction for the drill based on your analysis.
Love that, man. That is exactly what is needed. And for the listeners out here, as we wrap it up, surround yourself with men that love the game of baseball, because if they truly have a love of the game of baseball, they're going to have a passion for teaching it. And guys, this guy is on fire for the game of baseball. Josh Cathcart with Hitting Done Right, man. I can't thank you enough. Appreciate your time today, and you and I'll talk soon, okay?
Absolutely, man. Thank you very much.
Have a great day, bud.
All right, bud.
See ya.